Hi, Dr. Boyd. So for this assignment, we were supposed to look at Fortune magazine. Every year they post a most admired list of top companies in the U.S. And firms are rated on the 8 dimensions of innovativeness, quality of management, long-term investment value, social responsibility to the community and the environment, people management, quality of products and services, financial soundness, wide use of corporate assets, and if they are international, there is a ninth dimension, effectiveness in doing business globally. Now, the company that I decided to do this project on was Harley-Davidson. Harley-Davidson is one of the most well-recognized motorcycle brands in the country and in the world, and I'm going to explain a little bit about why they're starting to decline in some of their sales and why they're struggling a little bit with their bottom line as well as revenue. So let me jump right into it. Now, I wanted to give a little bit of background information on exactly like who and what Harley-Davidson does. So obviously they're an American motorcycle manufacturer, and they're one of the best well-known brands in the world. They were founded in Milwaukee, Wisconsin in 1903 by, this is actually a pretty common misconception, by one Arthur and three Davidson. So that they combined the last names and came up with Harley-Davidson. Um, and they are the largest market share in the U.S. as of 2020. They hold roughly 30% of the U.S. Motorcycle market share. The current CEO is Joshen Zeitz, and he just took over in March. And the former CEO before was Matthew Levatich, who served as the CEO between 2015 and 2020. Now, let's quickly look at their current bike lineup now. So they have several different groups. I just generalized this. They have electric, street, cruiser, adventure touring bikes, and trikes. So I just left pictures there just so you can kind of see what kind of customers they might be appealing to now, and just sort of gives you an idea of what Harley-Davidson, sort of what their models look like. So now jumping into the biggest concern of Harley-Davidson, in my opinion, really is their numbers. So is Harley-Davidson a dying brand? Well, let's take a look at a breakdown here. So the annual revenue and net income has been on a declining trend since 2014, which is obviously not a great thing. We're going to jump into some of why that might be in a little bit here. So what's causing this decline? Well, I think, in my opinion, it's a lot of brand relationship building. If you think about the typical clientele for Harley-Davidson, it's mostly going to be your baby boomer generation. It's mostly going to be 50, 60, 70, even like 80-year-olds. So Harley-Davidson's really been struggling a little bit with trying to build a brand around a younger audience, and I'm going to be talking about that here in a little bit. So let's talk about a little bit about the lack of innovation to a new generation of riders. So like I said, the average age of a Harley-Davidson owner right now is 47, and connection to a younger audience has been diminishing just year after year. And there really hasn't been a CEO that's been able to, or a board of directors that has really been able to steer this in the right direction recently. And on top of that, we have a huge electric wave coming in with cars and motorcycles as well. And Harley did try to, rebrand a little bit through their. I have a picture at the bottom there. Their Harley Livewire, but really hasn't had a lot of success. Not to mention, Harley-Davidson motorcycles are generally more expensive than other alternatives, which steers millennials and younger generations away from the brand and maybe towards brands like, Honda, Kawasaki, brands like that. And typically, a lot of the younger people you're seeing are liking the sports bikes, whereas Harley-Davidson, is more in the cruiser bike sort of model. So it doesn't really fit the younger generation too well. And a lot of younger people are also thinking about more of an eco-friendly mindset. So, some of these bikes that aren't as eco-friendly, especially with the push of electric vehicles now, a lot of people, especially younger people that understand this threat, are steering away from some of these bikes. So let's talk about the current organizational structure at Harley-Davidson and maybe why this is impacting, some of their poor numbers in the past few years. So Harley-Davidson has a functional organizational structure. It's strongly focused in the U.S., and I think this could be part of their issue as well. They really should be expanding a little bit more internationally if they can, but they focus so much of their attention in just the U.S. market, which I believe is hurting them. So they do practice like a centralization type theme. They have a centralized organizational structure, and they continue to try to expand international, but it just hasn't materialize as well as they would have liked, obviously. So, like I said, Harley-Davidson's headquarters are in Milwaukee, and it continues to be the main control base of the company. I really think they need to focus on maybe building some larger plants, elsewhere besides just the U.S. as their primary focus. And because 89% of Harley's revenue stems from their motorcycle sales, they really need to kind of rebrand themselves, internationally as well as to a younger audience, which is, I believe, the major reason why Harley Davidson's been struggling, so much over, the past 5, even 10 years. So, do I believe that Harley Davidson has a conscious culture? The short answer is I don't believe they do, and I would argue that they don't. They're not focused. They're not focusing much of their attention on, or they're focusing too much of their attention on the U.S. Domestic market. They need to focus, on how to improve their current financial position, and by doing that, they need to expand internationally. And one way I think that they can improve their conscious leadership is by focusing on manufacturing motorcycles and creating a slogan that attracts a younger target audience. So, like I said earlier, the previous CEO, Matt Levatich, stepped down. He was unable to rebrand Harley and connect to a younger audience. I really think that, Harley Davidson really needs to, you know, build a younger team, just, a younger board of directors, people that understand, the millennial generation. Maybe put 30-year-olds on the board of directors, not, people that are 60, 50, 60 years old that are connecting with the baby boomer generation still. Because I think this is really where the stem of the problem was really rooted. So let's look at the Cotter 8-step model. So I wrote here the 8-step plan for improvement. So I think they need to quickly develop a new brand vision and slogan around their brand. They really emphasize kind of that bad biker type of vision, and they've been doing that ever since like the 1970s and 80s. But they really need to start thinking about, how they can rebrand themselves to maybe they need to create a sports bike or something like that, because a lot of these younger riders are just not clicking with these traditional motorcycles that really honestly haven't changed style since. You can look at a Harley Davidson from the 1970s or 80s, and you look at the bikes now, and there's some bikes that honestly haven't changed a whole lot. So they really need to rebrand themselves around younger people, as well as focusing on an international market. If they did that, I think they can really help their revenues and, as well as their bottom line down the road. But I don't think it will be something, obviously, that is changed overnight. It is going to take some time to implement this. But I think that hiring younger people and putting them on the board of directors is a great place to start. Like I said, they need to focus on a future of electric motorcycles and think about the competition in this space. There's still a wide open market for electric motorcycles. This is a relatively new thing, and I think Harley has the brand recognition to be able to really step into this territory. But I think they need to do, they need to start really branding themselves around these electric motorcycles rather than just having one, having a starting price of $30,000 is just unrealistic to the younger generation. Maybe have, a bike that starts at, 10 to 15,000, like a lot of the competitors, so that younger people are willing to look into Harley's options for electric motorcycles. I do think that they need to serve and encourage all employees to think about a new wave of innovation. Harley Davidson has had the same image, like I was saying, for decades, and I think they need to come up with an effective change to sort of rebrand this for younger people. So like step 5, I was saying, they need to remove obstacles that can prevent the real change. And the managers and leaders at Harley need to focus on what is undermining this vision. What's slowing them down from change? Is it because they really want to stay connected with these older riders? I think that it's important that Harley can, keeps its image, but I also need to think they need to step away from some of the things that they've been doing, because it's just not working for their revenues and their net income. I think that if Harley changes their leadership to a more of a servant and conscious style, then they should, they need to first think about changing their electric market and rebranding their audience. I think this would be a great short-term victory for the company. but it's going to take more than just coming up with one good electric bike, to save the company. So, really slowly over time, I think they could do it, but they need to start hiring younger people and getting on the electric motorcycle wave quickly if they want to make any real change. Harley should continue to expand on the style and rebranding international, focusing on new markets and less of the domestic market. Like I said, Harley's owned the U.S. market, 30% of it for, forever. But it's time that they focus internationally, focus on changing their bike styles, focus on their rebranding around a younger audience. There's several things that they could really be doing to help fix their revenue and incomes. With these changes, like I said in the last step, I think, if they hire younger people, if they rebrand around electric motorcycles, if they redesign some of their current motorcycles, then, this combination, as well as, serving their employees rather than, focusing on what the board of directors wants, focus on what these younger employees, think is the right thing to do, then I think that they will have more of a conscious culture and, practice servant leadership in a more practical way. So I think several challenges could arise that they need to overcome. And, like I was saying, it's not like it's easy. It's, by no means is rebranding a brand that's been around for, over 100 years and, an easy task. But, there's also, there's a decline in global dealerships as well. Less and less, these companies like take Tesla, for example, they're trying to get rid of dealerships altogether, which is, how Harley is selling a lot of their motorcycles. So, they need to think about ways that they can, try to get motorcycles to customers, besides using, dealerships as an intermediary. And failure to amplify the brand that has been stagnant for many years, it's not going to be easy, you know. Um, and like I said, this is another challenge to overcome will be the time frame. It's not going to be a short time frame. It's changing a brand that's been around for this long. It's going to take years and years. But you have to try to appreciate small victories, like trying to slowly take in some of the electric market, the younger audience, and then with that, slowly over time, they can hopefully maintain a strong customer base with younger people, so that the brand can continue to kind of expand and do better, down the road. And some lessons I learned from the strategy and evaluation. So as a manager at Harley-Davidson, the first thing I would really want to focus on creating like-minded younger teams. I would like to strongly focus on the electrical motorcycle market and international markets. Um, Harley has focused so much attention on the domestic market and has failed to have a meaningful impact internationally. They have tapped into other markets like India, but it just hasn't panned out as well as it could have. And I think a strong marketing team could help fix this as well. I would also want to mold a strategy around younger customers. I know most Harley owners belong to the baby boomer generation, and a new rebrand must be created quickly to save a struggling brand. So that's just reiterating what I was already talking about earlier, rebranding towards a younger audience. Um, and the biggest lesson I really learned was rebranding a well-known brand like Harley-Davidson it's very difficult. Existing Harley-Davidson customers know exactly what they want when they step into a Harley dealership. They know what kind of bikes a lot of Harley owners have owned one or two or even three other Harleys before they buy another one. So they know what they're going in for. They know exactly what they want and what they expect out of their motorcycles. Change is not something the baby boomer generation will probably like with their motorcycles, but as the baby boomer generation gets older, there's going to have to be new customers that take their place over time. And if Harley Davidson wants to focus strongly on a more innovative future, they have to start with the millennial generation. 20, 30-year olds right now are typically the prime age that people like to start buying their first motorcycle. So affordability, sustainable motorcycles, good quality products, international markets are all things that down the road should help Harley-Davidson get back on the right track, increasing those revenues again, getting back on an uptrend, because they've been down for 5-10 years now. So if they want to thrive in a new generation, I think that those combination of things will really help their revenue and their bottom line. That's all I have, Dr. Boyd, but thank you for listening. These are my references. I really enjoyed learning a little bit more about Harley-Davidson. I honestly, I know a little bit about motorcycles, but I really enjoyed researching more about Harley-Davidson and seeing why they're struggling and how they can be improved in the future. So thank you.